Hey, what's up, y'all? JP here, back once again. We're at the Hear and Play headquarters. And I gotta say, I appreciate all the love and support from the last video that we posted. I was actually surprised that some of y'all was this worried about me, that you haven't seen me for this long, but I'm good. We got a lot of responses, a lot of questions, a lot of things, a lot of curiosity about what this course is all about. And let me tell you, we're gonna answer that in a second, but let me pull up on Dave real quick. This is Dave. He's actually working on the course right now. As you can see, we're putting the finishing touches on the course. That is I ain't gonna tell you the name of it yet, but that's a surprise. But some people have been like, JP, what is this course all about? And I wanna tell you, this is, like I said, one of the most comprehensive courses that you will ever see. And we've been putting a lot of time into it. And the surprise is that it's a drum course. No, I'm just playing. But we've been getting a lot of questions, and one of the main things that we focused in on is we've been doing this for about 15 years. At least I've been teaching. My first course that I did was Gospel Keys 600, and that course was massive. It was about 5 hours long. But what we've learned is that with all of that information, and even though the information is great, it's just hard to digest because it's so much, all in, one DVD. So what we did was we said, hey, let's create bite-sized lessons. From there, we went to the drawing board, we sat down and we started talking about it. And what we ended up doing was creating bite-sized lessons. But by the time we finished, it was well over 100 lessons. So you got a lot of content in this new course that we got coming. And we want to make sure by the end of each lesson, you know your assignment. Each lesson has its own test, and you're going to have all the information that you need to move on to the next step on each video. So watch this next video we got coming to you. It's another clip. We're going to give you another sneak peek into what's happening inside this killer course that we got coming your way. And also stay tuned, because there's some more videos that are going to be coming your way where we're going to give you bonuses. We're going to talk about discounts and so much more. So stay locked in and stay tuned. See ya. So now we're at tritones, which pretty much is derived from dominant chords in the way that we use them in gospel music. So when you think about the word tritone, you think about the word three, and that is because tritones are built up off of 3 whole steps. So this is considered a tritone right here, right? And we have a whole step from this C to D, right? That's one whole step. And then we have another whole step starting from this D going to E. So that would be one whole step here, 2 whole steps right here, and then this is the 3rd whole step right here. So tritones are built off of 3 whole steps. You don't count the first one as a step, that's just the note. So when you start to move, that's 1 whole step, this is 2 whole steps, and then this is 3 whole steps. But there's an even quicker way to understand tritones, because we use them for what we call dominant chords. So when you think about a dominant chord, for example, a C dominant 7, right? The dominant 7 is always a whole step below the root. So now we just turn the C major chord into a C dominant 7 by just adding the B flat, right? Now, when it comes down to tritones, tritones are technically built off of the 3rd and flat 7th of the dominant chord. So when you think about dominant chords, you can get the tritone directly from pulling out the 3rd and flat 7th, or vice versa, 7th and 3rd. So in this case, we got the 7th right here, the dominant 7th at the bottom, and then the 3rd is right here. So when we just pull those 2 out, this is still a C7 chord if you play C in your left hand, but it's more of a shell voicing of the C7, and then this is also the tritone that works with the C7. So this is the tritone for C, and it is built off of the 3rd and flat 7th. You can play it like this, and you can also flip it around and play the E up here, and you get the same thing. So, and this is a shell voicing of a dominant 7 chord.
Mm-hmm. Tritones are also in diminished 7th chords. Like there's 2 tritones in every diminished 7th chord. Like this, right? It has that tritone,
right?
But then it also has that tritone. They're overlapping. In some countries, that interval is so dissonant, they use it as their ambulance.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know a lot of people in my church say ambulams.
I thought you was gonna say something
Nah,
else.
it'd be like you go to some other countries, that's what it sounds like.
Wow.
But there's a reason for that, because that interval is so scary and dissonant. In fact, on the circle of fifths, C is at midnight, but directly across from it is that G flat. If you look at it at 6 o'clock, they're so opposite of each other and typically dissonant. And that's why they're in that dominant chord as a bluesy sound. It gives you some dissonance. They're in that diminished chord doubly as dissonant. You know, that's why it gives you a scary sound. So the more you involve that tritone, the more dissonance you're going to have.
Right.
And at some point in church history, in the 17th, 18th century, it was considered the devil's interval. You could not play that tritone or you would get, you know, you get in trouble, you know. But now, it seems in contemporary music, we're looking for that dissonance.
Right.
Yeah, so that's the first way, is the actual tritone itself. But you can also move a distance of the tritone, which means your bass can go from C to G flat.
Right.
And that typically is a great transition to take you to the four, you know. So that's something that you're going to learn as well, that you can move in tritone relationships. And we call that like tritone substitutions. And why does that work? Because every tritone, they're symmetrical, which means you could take the bottom note off the bottom and put it on the top, and it's the same thing. It's the same chord, right? And so what you'll find is that every tritone comes in two. There's really only 6 of them. Because if you take this tritone up, 1, that's the next tritone for the next key. That's the next tritone. That's the next tritone. So we're at 5 tritones so far, right? And then after you get to here, you're back like at this same tritone. And for the most part, they're the same as the ones before. Now you're back to that, right? So in fact, JP said that would be the tritone for C because of the third and the flat 7. But guess what? It's also the tritone for G flat, because this is the third and flat 7, right?
Right. Yeah, so if you move this up half steps, pay attention to these 2 notes, E and B flat, E and B flat. Get that in your mind, E and B flat. So if we go up half steps,
4, 5, 6, and now
what do we have? We have the same 2 tones, but now they're just flipped around, where B flat is the 3rd and E is the 7, but for G flat. It's still the 3rd and flat 7, or 3rd and 7 for the dominant chord for G flat, but if you bring it back down, it's the 3rd and flat 7 for C, 2 as well, just flipped around. E is at the bottom instead of at the top now. So yeah, there's only 6 of them, because once you pass the 6 mark, it just, or get to the 6 mark, it actually repeats itself.
So if you did a 1/4 progression with tritones, right, like R-E-S-P-E-C-T by Aretha Franklin, right, it would just go from like this tritone to that tritone. And the great thing about it is when you move in fourths, their tritones are next door, because you don't have to skip from this tritone to this tritone. You could just go to the other tritone that's right behind the tritone you're on. So if you actually do that, you'll notice that if you wanted to, without changing your tritone, you could play the other keynote that shares that same tritone. Because remember, there's 2 different basses that share the same tritone.
Right.
And they happen to be a tritone apart. So there's patterns inside of patterns, right? So you can actually go here, and then, so can we play that transition? Because that's actually in backing up a preacher. A lot of times you might go to that tritone away before you go to the 4.
Right. So let me see.
And then just with the tritone though. Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
So you can play this, or
how does it look with just tritones? Yeah. Right, there it is.
So from the 1 to the
tritone away, flat 5.
Right, to the 4.
To the 4. Right. So one exercise that I think people can do is with their right hand, they can start on the tritone and move it down But as they go down, they should move in fourths on the circle of fourths. How would that look? Just step by step. And we'll put these on the screen as well.
I'll start all over.
And then we'll do a little slower. So that's the tritone at 12 o'clock, C. Then he's just going down a half step, each finger, while the bass is moving to, what, 11 o'clock, that's F. Now we're at B flat tritone, right? E flat. We're just moving along the circle of fifths. You'll see the circle and you'll see the notes. Now we're at A flat, D flat, G flat, and now you'll see them repeating. So that's the same as F. That's the same tritone you had when we were in the beginning of the circle, just repeating itself.
And then we're back at C.
So if they practice that, I mean, especially on the organ, they'll be able to play a lot of praise stuff because praise stuff moves like that.
Yep, piano too, if you play with a bass player, a lot of times you see tritones being bounced in the left hand a lot of times.
To the four.
Yeah.
And they're so easy because they're so close together.
Yeah.
So that's tritones. Two things, how to form them. They're 3 whole steps apart, but more importantly, they're the third and the flat 7 of dominant chords. They're symmetrical, meaning you can flip them and then they'll be the same chord whether you play that tone on the bottom or the top. And there's 2 different bass notes that share the same right hand tritone. And they move in fourths next door, right? You could do that in fourths with your bass. So a lot of information in this lesson, but I do recommend you do that circle of fourths, circle of fifths exercise, just moving them in that pattern. And then when it comes time to play praise songs or 12-bar blues, you'll find that to be very helpful with those tritones moving right next door to each other. So in the next lesson, we'll actually use the tritone concept to learn altered chords. So see you in that lesson.